All right, hey guys, my name is Stay Safe. Welcome to the first official ClassiCast podcast where we discuss anything and everything related to Classic WoW. But before we get into that, let's go around and sort of introduce ourselves. So Tip, why don't you take it away?
Tips out, baby. My name is Tips Out. I've been playing Vanilla WoW since 2004. I started the second day after launch back in the day, and really I've played WoW pretty much all the way until present day, tuning in and out depending on the patch and expansion, so on and so forth. But I've been on YouTube for a couple of months. I've gotten the pleasure of meeting these wonderful gentlemen over here, and we're looking forward to delivering some high-quality Classic WoW podcasts to you guys, so hope you enjoy.
I'm Esfand. A lot of you guys may know me as Token Ret Paladin in as far as Vanilla WoW goes. I also started playing in 2004. Actually, I've always played a Ret Paladin pretty much from the beginning. I have healed some raids. Don't don't. I've gotten the full experience as a Paladin. Don't worry, I've been there. But yeah, I've been streaming for a little bit, almost a full year now. Been on YouTube. Gotten the pleasure of working with these guys now, so I'm really excited.
Have you tanked any vanilla raids as a prod paladin?
I have not. That is my next goal. That is my next mission to accomplish. So we've DPS'd. We've done a little bit of healing. I actually have a good healing story, but I'll save it for later. But tanking, I want to tank a ZG. That's my goal. WoW Classic, we're gonna tank a ZG. That's what's gonna happen on stream.
Nice. Okay. Well, my name is Stay Safe. My parents, I think, bought WoW for me back in 2004, in like the first couple months that it was out. So I've been playing, 14 years now, around there, off and on. Vanilla WoW is my favorite expansion by far, so I was almost in sort of disbelief when Classic WoW was announced at BlizzCon a couple months ago. So to say the least, I'm very excited for Classic WoW. And of course, I make some YouTube videos and I stream a little bit. But right now that the introductions are out of the way, let's talk about the current state of Classic WoW. Where is it at? We haven't had an official update from Blizzard in 2 months, 2.5 months.
Yeah, something like that.
So though we haven't heard from Blizzard directly, we do have some info regardless. Like they just recently they just filled the last position for the Classic WoW development team, their last software engineer that was posted on their jobs opening website. So what do you guys think about that?
You want to go Tips or?
Yeah, sure. I just want to give a quick shout out, by the way, to Benji98 for giving me the heads up on that hiring. They had 2 positions, I believe, opened up, a senior software engineer position and a junior software engineer position, and both of them have been filled as per a couple of days ago. And we also have about a dozen interviews or so that have been released since BlizzCon that kind of give you at least some direction as to what Blizzard is intending for Classic. But aside from that, we don't really have too much. I don't know, Esfand, if you have anything else on that, but I think that's where we are as of now.
Yeah, I think I think the hiring being done is a very good sign. I think so you're in a situation. It's a very strange situation because you have a game that you're going back. I mean, it's already done. The game exists, right? Like they have it. But what they need to do is they need to take the client and update it and make it work for a computer that has multiple processors. The original 1.12 client, the original vanilla client, I'm not sure. I think the Burning Crusade client was like this too, but it actually only worked with one processor. So you might have a situation where if you were to run that client right now and then to run Legion, you might have lag issues on the old client that you might not have with Legion just because the old client's not actually using your computer's full capacity. So they are essentially going to have to rebuild the game from the ground up, but I think they have a lot of the design. I mean, they do. They have a lot of the design stuff figured out already because they know what Vanilla WoW is. So it's you've kind of got this weird mix of like kind of cut and paste, right? But then also like, okay, well, we got to start this from scratch. We got to integrate BattleNet. Surely they're going to do that, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm just excited they finally got it done.
Yeah, one big note that J. Allen Brack had said during his announcement, or just later on in the day at BlizzCon, he had said that one of the big hurdles that they had realized and was preventing them from releasing Classic WoW earlier was, that today in 2018, 2017, they have a super high standard for in WoW, no bugs, no exploits, no hacks. And that was one of their biggest problems. There's a lot of bugs, exploits that are in vanilla WoW that they had to figure out a way to solve those. Then also the second thing is how to run this game on modern hardware.
Right. No, I think that's totally valid. I think in the past a lot of people thought like, oh, they just don't want to do it. They're trying to think of excuses or whatever. I don't know. I really actually don't think that. I do think there were a lot of hurdles that they did have to consider, and that the average person, the average player doesn't know about. Like we don't know about it. I mean, it's just because we're not in it, right?
It's an enormous task, I'm sure, bigger than most people. A lot of people are like, oh, the game was already made. Just release the game how it was. Like it's a lot more work that goes into it than that, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. And honestly, the technical side is one thing, but I think the second thing that's really going to determine when we see more information is number one, the beta, and number two, how they plan to align the release of Classic WoW with BFA, Battle for Azeroth,
yes,
as well as all of their other titles and all of their other products that are coming out soon. So honestly, it all really depends on when we're going to see that beta.
Yeah, so right now, the positions have been filled. Classic WoW is presumably full on underway, under development right now. Hopefully they're chipping away at it every single day. So maybe I'm too optimistic. I think that probably any day now, like I said, it's been 2 or 2.5 months since we've heard from them officially. I think pretty soon we'll probably have an announcement from them, just sort of touching base. But I think it's totally appropriate to give them their time to work on this, because at BlizzCon it sounded like just sort of like they're spitballing an idea. Oh, hey, we're doing Classic WoW, by the way. It didn't sound like they really had much fleshed out. So I think give them some time.
Right.
They're working on it every day. They just now, like 3 days ago, filled that last position.
Yeah. No, I would actually say I would hope that they get a beta out as soon as possible. And there's a lot of, we're talking about like how is the release going to coincide with BFA. Tips, actually, in Tips' recent video, he mentioned that he doesn't think they're going to run 2 betas at the same time. I actually don't agree with that, Tips. I'm sorry. just letting them know. I think that they've mentioned that they want to have 2. I mean, they are. It's not even they mentioned it. They are. They have 2 separate development teams, right? So I think if they have 2 separate development teams, you're going to be able to have 2 separate betas. Like that's going to be a thing, because you're going to have one team working strictly on Classic and one team working strictly on BFA. Now, the question there is like, okay, well, like taking the pool of players, you're going to have the same player pool, even though you have twice as many devs, twice as many staff, right? You have the same player pool. There's the question of like, okay, how many good beta testers do you have? And I think for those of us who are very passionate about WoW Classic, and hopefully we can get into the beta, I think it's very important that if we do get that opportunity, that we give a lot of feedback, test everything, and just to make sure that we maintain a good relationship with with Blizzard while we're testing the game, because I think it's obviously it's their game and all that, but if you get the opportunity to be in WoW Classic beta, I think you should take some pride in that. I think you should take some pride in that, and that you should try and do a good job with it and try and give as much good feedback as you possibly can.
No doubt. I think a lot of people treat betas as just sort of like an early access. Hey, I'm playing the game early, haha. But really, you're there for a reason. You should be testing things, finding bugs, reporting bugs, finding any potential exploits or anything like that, and reporting it. That communication is really important.
But I think that's the reason why, Stay Safe, I fundamentally disagree with the idea that they'll run them concurrently. Right now in 2017, we live in a world where betas are less about testing and more used as a marketing device for exposure. And usually betas are streamed by a variety of different streamers. They get a lot of coverage. And as a result, they're essentially released at the point where the product is almost ready to be distributed to the public. We have so many different phases of beta now. You have friends and family, you have closed beta, open beta, whatever. And the interesting and unique situation with Classic WoW is that not only is it going to be used as a marketing device, presumably it's also going to be used for development. I personally believe that the beta is really the phase where Blizzard is going to come out and test different ideas. They're going to come to the community and they're going to ask, should we have UBRS 10-man or 15-man? and they'll probably use that time frame to try both options and various options of various different community feedback. So not only is it a testing tool, not only is it a marketing tool, but it will also play a key role, I think, in just releasing Classic WoW and developing the final product. So that's why personally, I cannot see them running that concurrently with BFA. The operation just seems to be a little bit intrusive on one or the other.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, this is totally speculation, but if you look at sort of time from announcement to release for Blizzard, WoW games especially, and then how long expansions historically go on for, I think it's pretty likely we'll have BFA midsummer or late summer of 2018.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, we could have a Classic WoW beta, late summer or during the fall, and then a release, 4 months after that. Maybe February 2019, January 2019.
Yeah. Now,
optimistic.
And that may be optimistic, and I'm I kind of want to agree with that because I tend to be a rather positive person. I'm kind of I'm the everlasting optimist, but I do think, and I'm going to talk about this in a video. I'm going to come out with a video talking about this on kind of what I think. Basically, the importance, right? The importance of the WoW Classic beta. If they, that there's no beta for BFA yet, and there really hasn't been a whole lot of news on like an expected release date. But if they manage to come out with the game in the summer, like Stay Safe was saying, I think that they need to get on that WoW Classic beta as soon as possible. I think they just have to get it out there, and even if they release the initial phase of the beta, right? Like Tips, you were talking about a bunch of, and that's totally true. Like nowadays they have like freaking 10 beta phases. But if they want to do that, which I think they should, they need to build one. Okay, we got the client up. This is basically what we have. They say they have an internal copy of the game right now. I'm pretty sure that internal copy is literally what they got from the NOS team. I think that's what it is. So if they
think so, I think they probably have their old version from 2004 or 2006, wherever it ended off at. I think, yeah. Why wouldn't they? Right? Well, I heard. I don't know if this is a rumor. I heard they were trying to get back their old, servers or whatever. Like buy them back from people. I guess they gave them away during a charity event or something. Right? They were trying to get them back so they could get their servers back. Right?
I think that was a joke. JL and Brad. I think he said it as a joke. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that they surely have. I don't believe whenever people say they don't have their code for stuff, right? Because that's something so like, I used to be a computer science major, right? So for me, like, I still have a bunch of like old crappy programs I did before I switched majors because I was like, you know what, I'm not cut out for this. But that stuff is so valuable to the people that make them that they're not just going to want to throw it away. So I think that's very valid, right? What you're saying as far as like that could be their internal copy that they were talking about. But the reason I think it's the NOST code is because every time that they've talked about, I feel like this wasn't a discussion until NOST folded and came to them with their code. Like, why doesn't, like, I guess NOST could have showed their code just to be like, hey, like, we really care about this and look at what we did, right? So other than that, I don't know. And they said they played it at some point, so I'm assuming that they played it with that code. But who knows? Maybe they have touched it a little bit and touched it up a little bit, and they have their original copy. It's a good point.
That's a good point. I mean, Blizzard, a year and a half ago, flew them out to Anaheim, right, or wherever the Blizzard headquarters is. They flew them out. They had a meeting, silence for a year, and then they announced Classic WoW. So maybe they did take something from them. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's possible. But with all that being said now, assuming they did or they didn't, when do you guys expect beta to come out? I guess that's really the big question.
Yeah.
So my conspiracy theory, I'm way too optimistic. I think Classic WoW will come out between November of this year, November 2018, and January 2019, within that 3 or 4 month period. If it comes out in November, you have a WoW 14th anniversary release, right? And if BFA comes out in the summer, you've got time for BFA. If it comes out in November, that would be during BFA's first content drought at the end of their first raid tier.
Yeah.
I don't know. So you'd have a beta, maybe end of summer, early fall.
I mean, dude, I just don't want it to come out any longer than a month or more than a year after they announced it. Like, I'm gonna be honest, dude. Like every day that passes where it's like we don't have like a release date yet, I'm like, oh god, like I it's something that so many people have wanted for so long, and now that we like Stay Safe used the if you give a mouse a cookie analogy in one of his recent videos. It's kind of like that. Like we got a crumb. That's what we got. We got a crumb, and we want the cookie, right? I think I'm kind of on the same page as you, Stay Safe. Like I think if they come out with BFA in the summer and like they do like what I'm thinking, and I think they need to get the beta out as fast as possible. If they go BFA, beta is out at the same time, not same time, but maybe a little bit after, and then they manage to go like a 4-month period of very like intense, maybe longer, but 4 to 6 month period of like very intense testing. Like okay, it's we have like tier 1 phase, we have tier 2 phase, we have tier 3 phase. We're like testing all this little stuff, and then asking like a bunch of the development questions like within that, right? I know I think it was Jay Allen Brack that he mentioned like, are we going to make UBRS 10-man or 15-man? Or no, he said 5-man, but I think he meant 15-man. But yeah, I think stuff like that needs to be tested in the beta, and they need to go in and they need to change that stuff within the beta. And then again, like I was saying earlier, the players have got to give feedback. Like for me personally, whether UBRS is 15-man or 10-man doesn't really make that big of a difference to me. I mean, both of those things happened in vanilla. I think I correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Scholomance was 10-man at one point. Is that right?
At launch, I believe so.
Yeah. So like, because I remember doing a 10-man Scholomance and wiping miserably like thousands of times because we couldn't kill the freaking ghosts. But it's a whole other story. But yeah, I don't know. I think that, again, being very optimistic, I think that it'll come out by the end of this year. And I think that the beta is going to come out shortly after BFA. I think that would be the best thing for them.
Stay Safe. Could you toss me that bong that you've got over there in the corner? Because I'd like some of what both of you guys are smoking. Because if you think it's coming out this year, I mean, I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. The sooner the better, obviously. But I think ultimately it comes down to when we will see BFA beta and subsequently BFA launch.
Yeah.
If we see beta in April or May, which I don't think is unlikely, I don't think we're going to see it in the next couple of months. If we see it in May and it lasts for approximately 6 months, as is the usual for WoW betas, then it'll come out in probably October. That's my personal prediction, between October and November. I'm sorry, don't lynch me, okay? But staying, just observing it from afar over the past couple of years, especially with WoD, I can see this really extending into the mid to late fall. And if that's the case, I don't think Classic WoW Beta is going to come out until BFA has been out for maybe at least a month or two, at which point we'll get into the changes and all of that good stuff and testing things in beta. But I personally just can't see BFA running concurrently with any of Classic WoW stuff. You would be blowing a load a little bit too early. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Blizzard knows that Classic is going to be a slam dunk. It's going to be a layup. And they need to basically figure out a way to maximize the profit of both BFA and Classic WoW without hitting their microphones like I just did. But really, you know what I'm saying?
Well, check this out. That's a good point, because what I hear from a lot of people is that they don't want to release Classic WoW when BFA is popping off because they don't want to lose BFA subs. Mm-hmm. But conversely, you could look at it from the other side. What if Classic WoW could be bigger than BFA? What if BFA would be taking subs or players from Classic? Who knows? Who knows how this could play out?
Yeah.
Classic could be the new big game.
Yeah. Well, I'm under the assumption that they're going to use the same. It's going to be one subscription for both. That I'm under that assumption. I think that's probably fair, because what that'll do is, like you said, it'll get guys trying out the other one, and it'll just get them more invested in the ecosystem, the Apple effect, right? You get a freaking iPhone And then it's like, oh, well, here's the thing. If you get an iPhone, right, and then you got your freaking blue messages that you're messaging all your friends, and then you have that one friend who has an Android, and then you're like, sorry, buddy, you're not in the group text. Just because, like, you can't handle, like, that green text.
And then you gotta get the laptop and the watch and everything.
Yeah, and then you have the laptop, the watch, and then you got your freaking Apple Calendar and all this stuff synced up, and then you can't switch, right? So I think them having it on the same subscription is going to directly combat the issues with content droughts, right? They won't have to worry nearly as much because the content's already all done for vanilla, right? It's just as far as like how they want to release it, and that's progressive servers or however, progressive servers, progressive talents, like all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of little things to talk about there. But if they hit a point, right? If they hit a point in Battle for Azeroth, they hit a point in Battle for Azeroth where it's like, okay, you've done everything. You're basically raid logging at this point. I'm a BFA player. You know what? I'm going to go log into WoW Classic. Right, I'm going to go log into WoW Classic and I'm going to play there and, just kind of kill some time, right? Oh, turns out I really like this, right? And then you're playing that, right? So you're out of BFA, playing some Classic, and then you can just hop back over. I don't know. I think it's good. And I think them having that same subs, or the same, both games, one sub, and they can just show like, hey, here, like, look at our sub numbers now. Like, all of a sudden, like, they doubled. Like, I don't know if it's gonna double. I don't know if it's gonna double, but I think it's going to be pretty unreal. I think Blizzard's about to make a lot of cash. That's what I think is gonna happen.
It's gonna be big, and I think you're right. I mean, I'm no Blizzard market analyst, but that's what I would do. I would have them share the sub, and like you said, I'm a diehard Classic WoW player. I'm not really interested in BFA. But there's going to be a point where I'm raid logging in Classic WoW, and I'll be bored. I'll log over. It's same sub, but other way. Yeah, exactly.
It's true. So I don't know. I think, dude, I'm freaking excited, man.
I'm stoked, man. I still can't believe it happened. It feels so surreal. Like they did it, dude. They freaking did it.
Yeah. Now, one thing for me, just to mention, because Stay Safe and I both, recently started playing Legion. We, at least this is how I feel. I'm sure Stay Safe feels the same way. Well, okay, hold on. Backtrack a little bit. I personally did not have a grasp of really anything about Legion other than what I've seen, right? And there's definitely some complaints I have about the game so far, but as far as like actually enjoying the game and enjoying what I'm doing, I'm having a good time with it, right? So I think even whenever Classic's out, like I'm probably still gonna play BFA like just to arena. Like I don't know if I'll get into raiding, like hardcore raiding or anything, but I probably will arena in Battle for Azeroth because like that's for me the single, like if I had to say one thing, like one aspect of the game that was the most fun for me across any expansion is arena. And I absolutely love the arena. That was my favorite thing to do in Burning Crusade, and Burning Crusade was actually my favorite expansion period of time in the game, including vanilla. Vanilla close second, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, I think there are probably a lot of people like me that enjoy both, and I think that's cool. Some people will not enjoy the other and love the other, they'll love one, not even like the other one, but I just think it's cool because there's so many different kinds of people out there, and this kind of helps to cater to both play styles, both types of players.
I agree, and the question I think on Blizzard's mind is how do they capitalize on both audiences, and how do they align the releases in such a way that the second one dips, the other one can come in to save the day, so to speak. And even moving forward beyond launch, you've got a lot of patches in Classic WoW. You've got new raids that'll come out eventually. I don't think they're going to release everything on launch. How do they manage the patch release between retail or BFA and Classic WoW moving forward? And that could just be a big thing, moving ahead. They might not keep the same patch release cycles that they did back in vanilla. They could use this as kind of an advantage to ping pong back and forth between games. And I think that's really what we're going to see. It's going to be very much used as a supplement. Because I know a lot of people prefer one over the other. I'm definitely a Classic guy over some of the more recent stuff. But I check back in every expansion. I mean, Mists of Pandaria, I obviously didn't like what I was seeing in the trailers, but I checked back in and I stayed for a little bit. Warlords of Draenor, I stuck around for a couple of months. Legion, I dipped in a little bit. So I think there's a lot of people that are willing to come back to WoW at any point in time just because of the memories they forged in the game. So for Blizzard, it's how do we bring these people back every single time?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
And I'm just like you. The only expansion I didn't play was actually Mists, right? So I didn't play Mists, but everything else I played, you know, and then eventually Legion, because I hadn't played Legion until just recently. But everything else I had played, and I had a good time playing it, at least for a few months, right? The thing to me that has always kind of lacked after, I mean, even after BC, a lot of people think Wrath was their, for a lot of people, Wrath was their favorite expansion. I mean, you could say that's whenever, you could claim that's whenever WoW was mathematically the best because that's when they had the most subs. That's when they peaked.
Most subs, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's fair too. But for me personally, the game started to lack the depth that I was used to and that I enjoyed so much after. I mean, after vanilla, really, but Burning Crusade, I thought was just fine. I thought they added so much in Burning Crusade that it was. I mean, literally, it was a whole new world, right? And I thought that was fine, and I didn't ever feel like any sort of burnout while playing Burning Crusade. But I played at the beginning of Wrath for a tiny little bit, and I didn't have it in me for some reason, right? So I quit Wrath, and then I came back towards the end of the expansion, and it was like all my friends had quit. I didn't have anybody to play with, and it was just one of those things that like I didn't have. It was like hard to make friends with people, right? It was actually hard to make friends with people because things had started to move towards this not non MMO feel of the game that Legion. I mean, it has. It doesn't feel quite like an MMO in the same sense that Vanilla does and Burning Crusade did. For for a number of reasons, but then it got, to me, it got worse in Cataclysm, and it got worse after that and after that. But every single expansion, I played for a few months, and then I hit a point where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm logging on. I'm not doing anything. I just there's nothing keeping me here. And does that happen in vanilla? I'm not gonna say it doesn't, right? Because I mean, surely that's gonna happen to everybody at some point, whatever they're doing, right? They're gonna feel like they've accomplished everything they can accomplish. But to me, the difference in vanilla and Burning Crusade, but in vanilla, was that I had people keeping me there. And having those personal relationships, people always talk about the community of vanilla, and some people argue that the community wasn't good because it's toxic and they hate Ret Paladins. But I would actually say it's not about like what kind of community all the time. It's about the existence of a community. And
no.
Dude, I mean, just when you're on one server before there was any cross realm, battlegrounds, or anything like that, you had freaking rivalries. Like you would see a dude from the Horde side in every single battlegrounds. And you're like, oh freaking F that guy, I hate that shaman, right? And I'm a little biased, I'm paladin, right? And naturally, I hate shamans, but the close knit feel of the server kind of started to go away, and it kind of got to the point where it's hard to forge relationships because you don't need to forge relationships in order to get anything done. Because I can experience everything in Legion just playing solo pretty much in some form or another. Arena skirmishes, I can just queue for them, right? I can do LFR even if it's not mythic rating.
When I'm playing Legion, like one thing that is always in my mind, outside of my guild, if I'm doing LFR, I'm in a pug normal or heroic, or if I'm queuing a dungeon or a BG, these people might as well be NPCs. I'll never see them again. I will very little chance I'll ever have to interact with these people again. One of the biggest reasons I love vanilla WoW or upcoming classic WoW is the sense of community. If I'm leveling up, I'm level 35 in STV and I gank a Horde player, 10 levels later, I might see that guy, in Feralos, and he's going to remember my name and try to kill me back. Like there's always, and the guild versus guild drama and interactions and world bosses and sniping each other's, world buffs. Like it's crazy. The sense of community and interaction you have with other people, and not just the people, but the world around you,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. People can say, vanilla sucks or it's outdated or the content is too easy. you cannot take away the community feel from vanilla WoW.
Yeah,
That
it's
is the
almost
number
it's
one thing
almost
it has
not
going
about the
for it.
content. Like it's about the people you're doing the content with. You know, I mean, I'm like I've made like lifelong friends, right? Like I'm still in touch with people I played Burning Crusade with. I had a guy, actually I had a guy who I used to play with who I was friends with on Facebook. I hadn't talked to him in years, and he messaged me and he's like, dude, I think I just saw a video of you on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, it's me. He's like, what the crap, man? Like, what have you been doing? Like, it's just one of those things that's so it's so interesting just to kind of be in that situation, you know, with people that, you know, you've never met or whatever, but like you made these friends, you made these relationships. Dude, there's literally been people who've gotten married over World of Warcraft.
I think Tom Chilton, one of the developers, actually met his wife in World of Warcraft.
There you freaking go, dude. Like that, like it sounds so absurd, but like it's a real freaking thing. Like the relationships are so strong, they're so important, and again, not to say that it's impossible to get that in the current state of World of Warcraft, but it's definitely much harder, and you're not going to find it nearly as it's more rare and it's more difficult. So
yeah, I think people really respond to incentives. You know, in vanilla WoW and classic WoW, if you want to get your gear and progress the raids, you've got to communicate. You've got to negotiate with people. There's a lot of communication between you and other players. You know, if I want to see the content in Legion, I can do LFR and I can kill Heroic Argus, and I've seen the content, and I never have to talk to anyone the entire time. You know.
Yeah,
I agree, and but as much as communication and social interaction is the defining feature of vanilla, there are also a lot of other features that I think we need to talk about, especially during the testing period.
oh yeah.
I mean, what are they going to test during that beta? Is it just going to be a stress test? Is it going to be just making sure all of the bells and whistles are put into place when they transfer on the new hardware, the new infrastructure? I mean, we've got leveling 1 to 60. We've got raiding, we've got dungeons, we've got so many different elements, battlegrounds, etc. How much are they going to test this thing, and how long will the beta be as a result?
You know, and to your credit, Tips, it's such a big game, classic WoW. I think they should, and that they need to test all this stuff, and that could push out the beta. You know, if your average beta is, what'd you say, 5 or 6 months, this could be 8 or 9 months. There's so much that needs to be tested.
Well, and the thing is with a game like WoW, right? And any MMO, it's in a constant state of self-evaluation, right? That's why you have expansions where they make major changes to the game, for better or for worse. That's why that happens, right? It's because they're always constantly looking at their own data, they're looking at player feedback, they're looking at what's going on. So, I mean, really, you could argue that like each expansion is a beta for the next expansion, as far as like from them testing like design stuff about the game, right? Oh, well, we didn't like this about this expansion, so we're going to change this. We didn't like artifact weapons. We didn't have a good response to artifact weapons, so we're getting rid of them in BFA, right? I think because of that, like Stay Safe said, it could be really, really long. They might need to like force it to not last that long, because if they do like what I was saying earlier, and as soon as they can get a beta, they take it, package it up, put it in a nice new client, get a little bit of Battle.net integration going. Here you go, you guys can play this, right? And they have an initial phase of just leveling and playing the game 100% like as it is, right? If you go from there and just like see what happens over the course of 6 months, there's going to be a lot of people that actually don't get to test everything, which is gonna, I mean, it's really gonna hurt your beta, right? For Blizzard, it's gonna hurt their beta because they're not gonna get as much good data as they need to get. So what I think they should do is they have forced periods of like rating, like specific raid tiers, right? So you have your MC Anixia tier, you have your BWL period, you have your, I guess it would be BWLZG, and then you would have like AQ40, you would have Nax period, and during that time, you offer to people, hey, you get a free level 60, and you can just go like get free gear from the vendors or like a starter package or whatever. So like you have really good gear because you don't. Here's the things you don't need to test, right? You don't need to test the drop rates of gear. There's no reason to change the drop rates of anything. You don't need to test like how the gear works, right? All the items, all that stuff is already done, right? So you can leave that part out. You can leave out the part of how long does it take a guy on average to get best in slot for a raid tier, right? Leave that part out. You don't need to know that. So excuse me. So if you take all that, you already know all this, and then you go and you give them free gear, you increase the amount of resets that they have. Like let's say you do a half week reset instead of a full week reset. So that way people can run raids more often. It just allows for more testing in a shorter period of time. And I think that's really, really important.
I agree, but what you do need to test, I think, is what patch talents are we going to go with? Are we going to go 1.12.1 or are we going to go 1.1 progress all the way through? If we do decide to go to 1.12.1, what's going to be done with boss debuffs? If we're going to change boss debuff slots, are we going to have to tune the bosses up or down? All of these questions are going to come into play, and I think that's really where the community feedback kicks in. But every time you want to test something else, it's going to add an additional 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on what people want. And I don't see Blizzard going into any rush with this. I think they're going to take their time. But really, I guess it comes down to what people want changed. And some things aren't even changes. Some things could be temporary adjustments, like dynamic respawn time for the first 48 hours of launch. So what adjustments or what modifications need to be made in order for the game to be as successful as possible? And how involved should the community be when deciding those things?
No doubt. It was Ian Hazakostas a couple of months ago, maybe like a month and a half, 2 months ago. He said, "We know vanilla means vanilla." So after hearing him say that, that was really reassuring because, I don't think that classic WoW is the place for transmog or raid find or any of the other discussions that people have been having. This is not the place for that, I don't think. So that was really reassuring. But what that still leaves up on the table is, like you said, what version of vanilla WoW are we getting? Are we going to get an actual vanilla 2004, 2005, 2006 release timeline, patch by patch? Are we going to get a 1.12 client, which is what a lot of these undocumented servers have been running off of? Are we going to get sort of a best of vanilla WoW custom patch where they pick and choose, Blizzard picks and choose based off player feedback, whatever they think would be the best, most balanced experience? That's something they really need to put a lot of thought into, 100%.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, and this is kind of kicking back to what Tibbs was saying, as far as what needs to be tested as far as talents and stuff goes. I think you need to, like in these raid testing periods that I'm kind of proposing right now, I think they need to kick back and forth between the two talents, right? Give them 1.12 talents. Let them do the raid. How does it feel? What's their expected clear time? Look at boss kill times, right? Take that data, set it aside, and then you go and, okay, you're in the BWL patch, you're in patch, 1.6, right? Let's say 1.7. Okay, well, you're in the ZG patch. We'll give them ZG patch talents. And now let's test what are the boss kill times? How long does it take them to do the raid? What are the DPS numbers like within the raid? Looking at like a specific guild, a specific group of people doing the test, and kind of taking that, controlling it, and doing a side by side comparison of what's going on between the two different forms of the game, basically. Like whenever you have two different sets of talents, but I do think it's really important to go and like make a bunch of. I mean, you can call them changes, but like you can just flip-flop back and forth like in these raid testing periods just to get a really good sense right there. Like, okay, this is what it looks like if this is going on. This is what it looks like if this is going on. And these development questions, I think that's what the beta is for. It's the time to answer these development questions that are really, really important. You can do the same thing with the UBRS that we talked about a little bit earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. But now, do you think the community should be involved in dictating those changes? Do you think the community should be able to vote like they do in OSRS? Do you think Blizzard should just look at feedback online and make a decision themselves? Who do you think should navigate this big boat of modifications, alterations, changes, whatever you want to call it?
That's a really hard question.
That's a hard one.
The second you start doing player polls, it's mob rule, right?
Yeah.
The mob is not known for always, having the best opinion. I'm personally.
You think you do, but you don't.
You think you do. In my opinion, 1.12 is obviously the most fleshed out. And as far as class balance, it's the most balanced patch. It was the last patch of Vanilla WoW. As far as like making Blizzard's life easy, I hope they give us a natural vanilla patch timeline. Honestly, what a once in a lifetime opportunity to relive that. All the weird, weird things that happen in vanilla. Obviously, get rid of the bugs, get rid of the exploits, but all the weird imbalances, the ups and downs for every class, the talent trees that change, the going from no battlegrounds, like having to farm honor. That wasn't even, you couldn't even rank up at the start of vanilla WoW.
Yeah,
there was no honor system.
No honor system. Yeah.
What a crazy thing to experience again. That would be so unique and fun, once in a lifetime.
Yeah, that would be pretty insane. I know for like Paladin specifically, I remember whenever the 1.9, that was the Paladin rework patch, when the 1.9 patch hit, there was a lot of people, a lot of Paladins that were like legitimately upset because they felt like the Paladin got nerfed. And I think in a sense you could argue that it did, because they in pre 1.9 talents they could get Repentance, which is later on the 31 point ret talent. You could get Reckoning, which is 25 points into protection. You could get Vengeance, which is 30 points, I believe, into ret. And then you could get Seal of Command, of course, it's 11 points into ret. So you could get all these things which are spread out deep into the other trees all in one talent spec, which made them insane for PvP, like absolute juggernauts. But the thing is that because Paladins were not DPSing in raids, because, I mean, the 1.9 patch did make ret DPS a little bit better, but because you weren't actually getting to DPS in raids because the previous talents were so bad, you weren't getting a lot of the plate gear, right? You weren't getting a lot of the plate DPS gear, a lot of the warrior gear, and you couldn't rank up. Like you said, there was no honor system, stay safe, so there was really no other way to get gear. And I think one of the big reasons why you don't see ret DPS, or why you didn't see a lot of ret DPS, was because you essentially couldn't get a chance to go ret DPS unless you, I mean, in the 1.9 patch, they release AQ, they release the first ret set, they give tier 2.5, they managed to get that, and they collect enough off-piece stuff, and your guild can afford to lose a healer and take you as a DPS and bring another healer. Like, it was a very rare situation to, like, allow that to happen. I think that's a big reason why you didn't see red DPS. But kind of going back to it, I don't know. I think knowing everything that people like us, right, people who are vanilla WoW fans, like if you know what you know now and you go back and you play the game like that, like if I get like a lot of that plate DPS gear, I'm gonna feel like I'm totally overpowered, honestly.
Exactly.
But, I don't know, it'll be fun.
If you go back, I mean, this happened maybe not to the same extent as Paladins, but if you go back and look at the patch notes for every patch in Vanilla WoW, they overhauled just about every patch. They overhauled one or two talent trees for different classes.
Yeah.
Like 1.1 and 1.12 are very different as far as class balance goes. Mm-hmm. Very different.
Which is why ultimately I can't see 1.1 talents happening. There were just too many exploits.
Too much.
Yeah, just too much. I mean, too many inherent exploits, not even like things that are hidden in the shadows. No, there are certain ways to build certain classes to just dominate everybody else. And that's why I personally see 112.1 pretty much taking over as the default talent set. Mm-hmm. But then the question is, like Stay Safe, you said, you want to try, pre-honor system. Who wouldn't want to experience South Shore and Terran Mill again? I love the idea of only being able to queue up for BGs at a certain portal in like the Barrens or whatever. At what point do you say, okay, we'll keep the talents at 112.1, but maybe we'll go with a progressive patch release for the actual content, raids, BGs, etc. But if you do that, then you're going to have to adjust some numbers, because 112.1 obviously changed a lot of the fundamentals of the classes, and they did more damage in PvE and PvP depending. So I think ultimately what we're going to get is almost like a patchwork, an amalgamation of all of these different patches and elements of different patches, because you can't really pick one or the other without scrambling everything up in the process.
Yeah, you kind of get stuck in a bad spot there. I think I mean, I'm just thinking now, it just dawned on me. Can you imagine playing this game without diminishing returns. Like, diminishing returns didn't exist until
No, they didn't. You could keep someone sapped or feared or whatever.
Yeah.
Infinity.
I can't remember what patch they changed it. I was it 1.4? I can't remember.
I want to say 1.3. I want to say 1.3. Yeah, I'm not positive though.
Yeah, but yeah, man, like I just
Yeah.
that'd be a nightmare. There are a lot of imbalances. Like rogues were insane, and a big part of that was diminishing returns. Warlocks were garbage, honestly. So stay safe. You'd be screwed pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, Death Coil, for example, had a cast time and it didn't have a horror effect.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Yeah,
but you're right. If they release on 1.1, which is what I said I kind of want, that would definitely turn a lot of people away from the game because things are grossly imbalanced. So if you're right, to be fair, if they want to retain players and keep players interested, they should do run off of later talents and class design, 100%. But boy, would that be crazy fun, right? It'd be so wacky.
Yeah, and that might be something we get to experience in the beta. Honestly,
could be. Yeah, well, they're figuring out what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So with that said, now that we know all the crazy things that could potentially happen, OSRS style, you've got a booth in game. Blizzard just throws out a poll in that booth, and players can come up and vote on each issue one by one. Is that something you want to see stay safe?
Whew. God, that's such a hard question because it brings in the mob rule question. But it's the mob that's playing the game. It's the mob that's playing the game. So maybe you should just listen.
Yeah.
If 91% want this, I would want to see a super majority, not just a 51% want this and 49 don't.
Right.
I would want to see a super majority if that's what they're doing. It has to be like 97% of people want this change.
Yeah.
But because I don't know. But how else are you going to do it? Are you just going to have Blizzard say, "Okay, guys, this is what's happening. Deal with it"? I mean, what are you going to do? Obviously, the easiest thing is just hashtag no changes. No changes at all, other than bug fixes and stuff. Run off 1.1, then 1.2, then 1.3. No changes. It's such an easy out for Blizzard, right? They don't even have to think about it.
Easy out. Yeah, I think just to jump in real quick.
There you go.
I think the big thing is with the whole like mob mentality, whatever. There's a lot of people that would argue that the reason why World of Warcraft progressed the way it did is because of people going on the forums and complaining and Blizzard listening to people too much. Some people would argue that. I don't know how much that's true or not, but I have seen that before. A lot of people say, "Oh, like the whole issue is that Blizzard listened to people too much." So I don't know.
So do you think it would be wise for Blizzard to filter out that audience to more veteran individuals, people that have been around longer? Let's say if you've been subbed, or if you were subbed back in vanilla, then you qualify as an eligible voter. But if you weren't subbed back in the day, then technically you can't. What do you guys think about something like that?
Yeah, I'm glad you said going by sub dates or something, because I was going to say, everyone on the internet is at 50 times rank 1 glad. They cleared Nax when they were 9 years old, right? So you'd have to go by sub date. You couldn't just take people's word for it.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but in vanilla WoW, the circle of players that got rank 14 is pretty small across all servers. Pretty small. The circle of players that cleared Nax is pretty small, right? The amount of people that I've heard said they got rank 14, they cleared Nax in vanilla, especially given the fact that you're probably between the ages of like 25 and 30, which means you were probably somewhere between like 10 and 15 years old. You didn't just like mathematically there's not enough hours in the day with you going to school, and like more than likely you didn't do that. I mean, I won't say 100%, maybe that's not fair, but more than likely you probably didn't do that.
Listen, best in slot, might have Menethil, rank 14. I did it all, man. Horde and Alliance, man, on every class and every race combination, race combination.
Man. Yeah.
No, but yeah, I think it's an important thing to talk about, because Blizzard could always just say, okay, we're going to take a look at the feedback from afar, and based on that, we're going to make our own decisions, which, to be honest, is something I kind of agree with, unless they decided to restrict the pool. But even vanilla players can be a little jaded sometimes, and their memories maybe aren't as good as they think. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how that happens. But now, not only are we going to be talking about modifications that we know of, what about some of the changes that could happen that we don't know of? Battle.net integration, possibly server population size. I don't know. What type of changes do you guys think are going to happen regardless of what people say?
That's a good question. I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine, I think that back in vanilla WoW, server caps were at 2,500 around there. I would imagine that's because of hardware limitations. Now their hardware is what, I don't know, a trillion times better. So you have servers hosted in Russia that can have 12,000 people on them, right? So by no name people. Blizzard can definitely have as many players as they want on a realm, on a server.
I think so too.
Within reason. So they need to decide: do we want, vanilla like server caps 2,500? Do we want 6,000? Do we want 12,000? What do they want?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, this could be all part of the testing. Whenever they open up the beta, how many beta servers they're going to have? Maybe they'll have one PvE, one PvP server, right? Maybe they'll invite like 20,000 people to the beta. And, assuming 10,000 for this, 10,000 for that, and then how many of those people are going to be logged on at once, I don't know, right? And if you kind of hope, if you did that, you probably aren't even going to hit 2,500 people, honestly, just realistically. But you might even condense it down even more. You might just say one server and you invite 20,000 people on, and then you make the server cap. Like, for me, and I think I've heard a few other people say this too, I think 5,000 is a good number. I think anything over 5,000 is fine too, but as far as like feeling the server being alive and like walking into Ironforge, and that's the thing now. I log into Legion. I actually, dude, the chances of this happening are less than 1%. But I was AFK in Ironforge, auto running into a wall as I'm known to do, and there's like nobody in Ironforge, right? There's no reason to be in Ironforge, pretty much. One of my viewers is like standing behind me, and he's playing on a different server. I'm not streaming or anything, and he plays on a different server, and he just happened to be in the Ironforge on Kel'Thuzad, and he was just like standing there. I was like, "What's up, dude?" Like, what are the chances of us like running into each other here? But if you're playing vanilla, that's something that you'll see like all the time. Like, you go to the bridge and it's like, oh look, it's like the guys who are just like trolling the bridge literally all day. They just stand there and RP, and it's just like, it's stupid, but like that's the kind of like community that you have. That's the kind of interactions that you'll have with people in vanilla. Like, people will gain reputations for just like the smallest little thing. Like, oh yeah, I see that guy. Yeah. Like, I know, like you might see a guy sitting on the wagon in Ironforge, right outside of the I call him the repair guy. That's where I always go to do my repairs. So, like, if you're facing the bank and you look left, there's a little wagon there, and like you'll see there's just one guy just always standing there. Like, this is my wagon. Yeah,
I've seen people set up their own little in-game shops, like "Welcome to Stay Safe's enchanting shop" on the wagon. And people RP it. But another thing with these changes you asked about, Tips, no matter how well-intentioned or insignificant it may seem, there's always an implication with it. And it might lead to more changes that you have to make to accommodate it. For example, if you increase, the server population from 2,500 to 7,000 or 5,000, like Esfand said, are you going to have dynamic respawns for mobs? Are you going to have dynamic respawns for quest items you pick up off the ground? There's, what are you going to do? You have to, one change always might lead to another change,
Exactly. There's a completely unaccounted for butterfly effect that can just ripple throughout the entire game, which is why I'm no changes personally. But there are some changes that I think, regardless of what I say, what you guys say, what anybody says, are definitely on Blizzard's radar. And I think the biggest one is BNet integration, and possibly your BNet's friends list. And as we know in vanilla, if you may not know in vanilla, back in the day, you could not communicate cross-server with anybody else, and you couldn't communicate cross-faction with anybody else on your server. Obviously, with the BNet friends list, the one that we have today, you can do that. So in an environment where world bosses are highly contested cross-faction, where a lot of the things in world PvP are dependent on like intelligence and recon of the other faction, do you guys think that having a cross-realm or a cross-faction friends list is okay? Do you think it's tolerable, or do you think it breaks down some of the fabric of the fundamental game?
I think it's bad. I think it's really bad. I think they're going to have to find a way to block chat on the same server, keep it to the same faction, because heck, you might even have to do something to where it doesn't show you where the opposing faction guy is. I think they're going to have to do whatever they can to get as little information about the opposing faction as possible because, I mean, in vanilla, dude, if you play Alliance, you hate the Horde. Like, it's not like people will. I mean, you just hate them. And there's some people that will go and they start trying to cross team, right? Because, and here's the thing, dude, it's the internet, right? And the internet has changed since 2004, right? With Discord and people being on shared Discords and you're able to communicate with whoever, the potential for cross teaming is really, really, really high, right? And you could argue that, well, you know, if they have another way to do it anyway, then why not just like let Battle.net roam free, right? I think Battle.net is that's just something to be expected. I think a lot of people have like just kind of come to terms with that, and I know I have, right? I think Battle.net as it is going to be bad for vanilla. So, like I said, I think they need to do something to like block communication, or in Legion, if you right click on a guy's name, right? If you right click on a guy's name on a Horde guy's nameplate, you can just add him as like Battle.net friend, just right then and there. Like they can't have that. They absolutely cannot have that in vanilla WoW.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's they got to figure something out because Battle.net as it is not good. Not a good situation.
You're definitely right. A lot of modern, you know, internet technology has a lot of big implications for vanilla WoW, for classic WoW.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, you have Discord, which is promoting, you know, cross-faction collusion on PvP servers. Like, as far as a WoW streamer, streaming and vanilla WoW, they don't really go together very well, do they? Like, back in vanilla WoW, you did not have streamers. Like, if I'm doing a world boss with my guild, and I'm trying to stream my world boss, like that doesn't go together very well. You know?
Yeah. Man, you got to have like a 15-minute delay or something, 30-minute delay, honestly, because if you get in a big, if you get in a position battle, right? Because this will happen for those of you guys who haven't played vanilla WoW, you will get in positioning battles, right? In order to work on getting a mob tag or a boss tag, right? Because if you tag the boss, you get credit for it. Your raid's gonna get the chance to actually kill the boss. That's the big thing that's important whenever you're talking about same faction stuff. But you might have a situation where Horde raid gets the tag on a boss, right? And they wipe. Okay, let's say they wipe, they come back. On a lot of the bosses, on a lot of the bosses, they have some sort of mechanic that doesn't allow you to actually like go and kill him again, right? Like Azorgos has the ice block, right? For I think is it 10 minutes after you die, 15 minutes maybe.
It's pretty long.
It's a long time, right? It's a long time. So what might happen is these two alliance guilds are getting a chance to compete for this boss, right? So that Horde guild might come back out and scout. Okay, where are these two alliance guilds? Which guild do we hate less? Which guild do we hate less? And we're going to go let them try and get the tag, and we're going to go harass the other guild so they can't get to the tag in time. So at least we can make an impact, right, if we don't get a chance to attempt the boss again. It's crazy, dude. It's freaking insane. Like everything about how world boss is and everything that works on PvP servers.
Yeah, and you know, even going a step further, you have alliance guilds working with Horde guilds. So let's say I'm guild A and I'm friends with a Horde guild. Hey, Horde guild, I hate this other alliance guild. I want you to wipe them. And then next week when the boss respawns, I'm going to let you have the tag. I'll do the same thing for you. You have these guilds trading off boss kills with each other and wiping, you know, your same faction raids. It's crazy. So does Blizzard allow that, the cross faction collusion? Yeah. Because that sort of undermines the spirit of vanilla WoW PvP servers, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. As do many other changes,
Yeah, and it's something you just didn't really have happening in vanilla WoW back in the day. Because on PvP servers in vanilla WoW, you couldn't even have an Alliance and Horde character on the same account on the same realm. On PvE servers, I think it was different. But PvP servers, these players had very little communication. Now on Discord, you just hop into Discord, you're all buddies, right?
Yeah.
And you trade off devil swords and you trade off world bosses.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, the prevalence of mafias is definitely going to be a thing, and if Battle.net stays the way it is, it's just going to make that easier.
I agree. And as will many other changes to the game, there definitely is an unaccountable ripple effect that I don't think anybody can calculate until these changes actually go into effect. But if you want to voice your opinion on changes, on lack of changes, we definitely recommend you guys go to the forums, go to our classic WoW, MMO Champion, let your voice be heard, because honestly, the worst thing we can do at this point, after Blizzard has been gracious enough to actually go with this plan, is to be silent. So make your voices heard, be active in the community, and let Blizzard know exactly what you want. So ultimately, we can get the best game possible, and hopefully with as little modifications and changes as possible. But we'll see how things go. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. We're going to be talking about some of the expected changes in the next episode.
And thanks for bearing with me, guys. If you couldn't tell, I'm kind of sick. I've been trying to mute my mic as much as possible to you guys don't have to deal with my coughing. But thanks for bearing with me. So shout out to you guys for doing that.
He's got that Stormwind Ebola, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude, it's not good. It's not good.
It's going around.
But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please look forward to our next episode. Subscribe to our social media below. You can see them under our portraits. And if you guys like the podcast, let us know in the comments. And if there are things you didn't like, also let us know in the comments. We'd really appreciate it. It's our first time doing this. We don't really have any like crazy prep or anything like that. So the more feedback, the better. And hopefully we can continue producing these in high quality for you guys. So thank you very much. And stay classy, fellas.
Appreciate you guys.